The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do? Don't want your game cracked? Do a better job designing it, or at least that's what I say. Michael Larson thought so too when he took Press Your Luck to the cleaners, as Amber and Scott discuss in The Luckiest Man in America. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
So we're going straight into a what would you do today, like even before you speak. And I'm going to put myself in the shoes of the people who produced this movie. If I'm producing a movie based on real events, very easily researchable, documentable events, even if I give a little warning at the beginning that this might be a dramatization of real events, I'm still sticking pretty close to as many of the facts as possible. Like, I'm going to let you tell everyone what we're talking about here.
Okay, yes. Hi, Amber here. All right. So this episode, we were talking about The Luckiest Man in America. Based on a true story and set in 1984, the film follows Michael Larson during his frantic 12-hour stay in L.A. as he pulls off a heist in front of a live TV audience. That is a very misleading description. He did not pull off a heist.
Freaking horrible description.
You know, this film I booked specifically early because I know you love game shows, and you've actually been a game show contestant. I thought you'd have some fun with this. So I'm going to let you take the lead here and just dig into some what would you do's.
Yeah. I lost a $46,573 Cadillac on The Price is Right.
Wow.
I tried to be on the Pressure Luck. I got through like first round, but obviously never to the show.
Yeah, so the basis of this film is the heist is a little inflammatory words. This guy just dominated this game show, won $110,000 when before no one had won more than what, $50,000?
No, not even that. They said his final total was more than 3 times the highest previous high.
Yeah, so this was 1984, and the jackpots were high for back then, but lower by today's standards. And usually most folks in an episode, you know, they did okay. But this show, for anyone who isn't familiar, it's based on an experience that happened on the game show Pressure Luck.
Yes.
Where you push a button and all the different squares on the board light up, and you have to tell it when to stop. And you want it to stop somewhere good, or if it stops somewhere bad, that's where the whammy comes from. And the whammy is this little giggling creature who takes away all your stuff.
He's adorable. I loved all the animations.
Yeah, so he takes away your prizes and your trips and your money.
No, I actually, when this show was on, I might have been a bigger fan of Pressure Luck than I was Price is Right. And I love Price is Right.
So there are some what would you do here's from the contestant standpoint, Michael Larson, for the people behind the scenes who are running the show. So I'm going to let you go ahead and kick us off here.
Okay. Well, first of all, I hate the title because they are implying that what happened was luck. And what happened was not luck. What this was Michael Larson, who was clearly smart and unemployed, so he had time on his hands. He studied the show, and he realized that there were only the lights would move around in patterns, and there were only so many patterns. They said 5 on the show. I feel like the actual number was 10. I feel like they dumbed it down to make it seem like it would just be easier, and why, of course, somebody was exploiting it. But I think it was 10 from the documentary on it. And they moved in a very specific pattern. Now, there's 18 squares. It jumps around. You've got to, anytime it goes up, you have to identify which of the 10 or 5, 10 patterns the the board is giving you.
And this was not common knowledge. It's not like everyone knew, oh, there's a limited number of patterns. They just knew the lights bounced around and you wanted to stop the light from bouncing around and be lucky enough to have it stop somewhere good, not somewhere bad. This was not common knowledge that you could work the system, or there was a certain number of patterns.
There was bad, there was good, and then there was good plus a spin. And the good plus a spin is where it comes in, because if you hit that, you basically, it's a free spin.
And this is 1984, so there's no internet to be able to share this information freely, and forums and
but
check
VCRs
boards, and that's a really good point. Is VCRs were growing in popularity in the 80s, and if you taped a game show, you could watch it back infinitely. You could slow it down, unlike streaming today, where you can't actually move things slowly. You could slow it down frame by frame to see the bouncing around of that light on that game board.
And on top of that, of the 18 squares, there were a couple of squares on there that, so along with the light bouncing around, the prize amounts in each window would change, and they changed at a differing speed than the lights. So much so that it was pretty much impossible to be able to track the light pattern and track the background at the same time. You just wouldn't be able to do it. So he had figured out that there were a couple, I want to say it was 3, but maybe it was 2 spots on that board. Well, okay, I think there's more than 2 that never have a whammy. I think there's 3 or 4 that maybe don't ever have a whammy, but there's 2 that never have a whammy and always have plus spins. So if you just know that, all you have to do is figure out which pattern it is, and whenever it's going to land on one of those 2, stop. And he probably spent a lot of time like doing this, practicing it. I think he spent round 1 partially just getting the feel of the buzzer, because you don't get to practice that. Like in something like that, because I do know this, when you sit down in front of that thing, that's the first time you've ever sat down in front of it. There's no test.
And there's lights in your face, and there's a live audience, and there's a lot of stress and anxiety and excitement that comes with all of that. So regardless if you go in with a strategy or not, there's these external factors who are affecting you.
Yeah, so he had to know this, and he had to be able to keep calm.
So the important thing that listeners should realize is this film makes up a lot of things. So if this is a story that actually really interests you, there are a lot of things that happened in the film that were really good and dramatic that just didn't happen.
Yeah, so here's the problem. I mostly hated this film. And I mostly hated it for every reason I stated up front. This is something I knew about. I've seen the documentary. Like, I knew this story before I even knew it was going to be a movie. So I knew a lot of the facts behind it. They just made up so many things, and there were details that they just weren't paying attention.
So there was details that they made up that made the story more interesting. Okay, I get that. But they changed factual things because we actually watched the episodes, the 2 episodes that the character Michael was on. We watched those before we recorded this episode. And there were things about the order in which the contestants answered things or who got an answer right. And they changed those in the film for just no good reason.
Yeah, it really, they could have done it exactly the way they did it on the show, and it would have been just as dramatic and just as intense.
So whenever you're ready, because again, I know you have feelings and this is a personal interest to you, let's go ahead and dig into some of the things that happened in the movie and what would you do?
Okay, I just want to finish up the one point on continuity.
Yep.
Like, there were things where, like, he had hit a random prize, so his total was like a random number. I mean, like 26,581 or something, like something crazy. And then later on, they showed him with a higher total, but it ended in 00 again. And the likelihood of that happening would be bonkers. Like.
So what I'm hearing is if you were the producer of the film, you would have been more diligent about the numbers.
I just think whoever was the continuity person for that should not be working in this industry. And
You're fired.
It should have been caught. Like, there were just little things about it that there was no excuse to get them wrong. They could have used all the real numbers, because in the end they ended up with the same. Like, they could have used all real numbers and everything and made people like me happy. Because let's be honest, this is not an Oscar candidate. This is not a blockbuster movie. This is going to be watched by game show nerds mostly.
Well, perhaps as we discuss this, the thought crosses my mind is perhaps they didn't want to bring in all of the other facts because there were big pieces of the story that were actually made up.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they didn't want to mirror everything exactly as it happened, because then it would just make the facts that were not facts that they brought into the film just feel that much more out of alignment. So
I still feel like you could have done that. You would have made people like me happy with it. And yes, I get it. I mean, he has this thing where he's trying to call his daughter for her birthday and they won't let him. They have this thing where, like, they break into his van and find a guy who's got a restraining order against him, and then makes that their home player.
okay, so
spin, like,
in the actual show that aired, it's just moving along normally. In the film, the producers catch on that, hey, there's something not right here, and they're getting concerned as he continues to win and win and win. And they
I'm
ultimately,
sure in real life the producers figured it out. We just don't have cameras on them.
Sure, of course. So there is one of the contestant wranglers who somehow gets involved and looks in Michael's ice cream truck that's parked in the parking lot, breaks in, sees that he has a bunch of VHS tapes, brings them in, realizes they're all episodes of Pressure Luck, finds a detail that this guy has a restraining order against Michael Larson, calls, figures all this out, then rigs it so the home player of the day that they call and the in-studio contestant is playing for, that they play for someone at home, and they take the guy's name, who is the guy that has a restraining order against Michael Larson, who appears to also be with his soon-to-be ex-wife.
Yes.
And that's who Michael Larson has to play for. So they think they're going to catch him and be like, oh, he's not going to want to win for this guy who's a restraining order against him.
Well, I
thinking that it'll rattle him or something like that.
That's the whole thing. I think in the movie, the idea was that not that he's going to try to do something bad intentionally.
Yeah, it'll just rattle him.
Just rattle him.
Like, oh, shoot, okay, they realize there's something up. How do they know this guy's name? They're on to me. There's something up. So there was just a lot of blatantly made up things that happened here in the film itself. So
if I'm Michael Larson, I'm not changing a damn thing about what I did. He found a weakness. He exploited it. I am all about finding weaknesses and exploiting them. If it's out there and what you're doing is legal, and what he was doing was absolutely legal.
Yeah, because cheating implies that
You had an unfair advantage.
You had someone with an earpiece, or it fed you information, and that just wasn't true.
No, even if there was an earpiece, yeah, it might have helped during the question round, but there's no way someone with an earpiece is going to be able to help you with the big board.
So,
unless it's literally on the inside, and then you have a bigger problem.
He did do something that helped him master the game. But what he did was something anybody could have done. And like you said, it was a flaw in the game to have a limited number of sequences in a game show.
Oh, and it should be noted that after this aired, they fixed that one. I don't remember if it was that they added like a ridiculous number of patterns, like 100 patterns, to make it just completely, I mean, not impossible, but no one's going to go through and map out 100 patterns, which will start to look alike eventually.
Sure.
Because you don't know where the pattern's going to start. It's not like it always starts at the beginning.
Right.
It could start in the middle. So, yeah, so they absolutely filled this gap.
So in the course of the film, we have the audience coordinator here who gets thrown under the bus by the producer, basically like, why did you let this guy on the show? When really it was the producer who let the guy on the show, and he threw the audience guy under the bus. And at that point, the audience guy is disgruntled and kind of takes things into his own hands by making the at-home player the guy who has a restraining order against Michael. And we see him playing investigator and calling places and, trying to figure out what the story is with Michael. So what would you do if you're the producer? He threw this guy under the bus. Obviously, he didn't want to be responsible for saying, hey, I brought this guy in the show. But I think the saving grace was someone else in the production studio who said, hey, we can leverage this. Let's make this guy a hero. Let's get all of our advertising towards this and what's happening and get America on board with this guy doing well and increase our ratings.
See, this is where I really get conflicted because of the IRL part. Because, for one, no game show is ever going to be like, hey, coming up soon, our biggest winner ever. It's coming up on this Friday, and make sure to watch it. They're just not. There's no way to get more eyeballs on that show. So they're not going to be able to get an increased ad spend. I mean, it's great if you can.
What do you mean they can't get more eyeballs on the show?
Well, they're not going to be able to get more eyeballs than they normally would because you can't advertise that you're going to have a big winner. You just can't. So
you
same
can,
people
you
who
can
are
advertise
watching,
for the second episode that he rolls over to.
Yes, you might be able to.
Like, will he's at $75,000. Will he keep going?
Now, it is possible. Okay, it is possible. Sorry, that they intentionally did this on a Friday, going over into Monday. Okay,
they
maybe
did.
I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Actually, they did. It was Friday. Into
Friday
Monday.
going over into Monday, so that people could be talking. Oh my God, did you see that episode of Price is Right? Or not Price is Right, Press Your Luck. They're going to be doing part 2 on Monday. Okay, I rescind what I said about that. And yes, I mean, but here's the thing. Like, if you're the producer, you just don't do crap. You let the game play out. You don't screw with him. You don't anything. You let the game play out the way it is. Because either he's got you, he's figured out your scheme, and he knows how to beat you, or he's cheating. Like, it's A or B. If he's cheating, you'll figure it out after the fact, and he won't get any of his money. If he beat you, you just got to take your lumps on that one. But here's the other thing, too, like I was telling you earlier. Yeah, the dude wins $110,000. Do you know what these shows cost to produce?
Pennies. They have merchandise that's donated, sponsors for washing machines.
No, the cost to produce them is quite high. It's very expensive. But it's in the production costs. It's set, it's crew, it's a whole bunch of other things. It's not the prize. The prize they give out is a very small percentage of the actual production cost. So,
well, and these shows, they don't just, hey, bring everybody together, record a show, and then send everybody home. They record a whole week's worth of shows or a month's worth of shows. They bring in audiences who sit there through episode, pretending like it's the next day.
yeah, so an episode might cost $1 million to produce between salaries and everything else, plus the prizes. So if it's a good solid other winner, $1,025,000, or if it's him, $1,110,000. Yes, one number is larger than the other, but it's such a small percentage of the production cost that I'm not freaking out over it at all. I'm going to let it play out. And that's another reason I hated this movie, because they really played the producers as nincompoops. I mean, they even
So what would you do? What would you do if you were the producer, Mr. Carruthers?
I would do nothing. I would sit there and I would watch the game play out.
And what would you do if you were the audience guy who now got thrown under the bus, basically blamed for this when it was your boss who did it, and you are feeling very used and abused?
Okay, listen. So that has to make an assumption that the producer is freaking out and they somehow are getting bigger executives down there in real time. Because mind you, these shows are pretty much filmed roughly in the amount of time that it takes on air. Like if it's a 30-minute show, they probably filmed it in 30 minutes.
Right.
So this whole thing was under an hour. And to get to the point of realizing there's something wrong, I mean, they're not going to get an executive. But let's just assume that they somehow did. And he's trying to he's trying to pass the buck. If I'm the audience guy, I'd be like, listen. And this is where it's important to note that, again, in the movie, he showed up and impersonated another contestant who was trying to get on because he couldn't get an interview.
Yeah, he goes to where they have the interviews ready, and they call someone's name who does not answer. And they're calling this guy's name's Travis, Travis here. And then he's just kind of standing there and realizes, hey, this is an opportunity for me to actually get on the show because I
Travis
just went here without an interview slot.
So the guy got in and interviewed, and then it got discovered, oh, it's not him. And they kick him out. But then the producer's like, you know what? I know that guy wasn't supposed to be here, but I still liked him. And if I'm the producer, I'm fine with that. I mean,
because he had a good story.
Yeah, he had a good story. And also, if you're the producer, you got to be thinking, damn, this guy really wanted to be on the show. Like, let's
Oh, he was a fan. He watched the show with his family. He gave the producer a plate with a hand-painted whammy on it and had this story of being a down-on-his-luck guy who drives an ice cream truck, which they actually see. He drives an ice cream truck, and we're like, wow, that just seems like a all-American guy that you could root for.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the most charismatic guy in the world, but... Right. I mean, he had, unemployed former ice cream truck driver from Ohio. Like, there was a great story there, and they felt like they could run with it. And I mean, honestly, that was probably, I'm sure he didn't impersonate a contestant or somebody else to get on the show in real life, but I mean, they are looking for people who make good TV.
Well, and the fact of the matter is so many game shows have contestants from the greater Los Angeles area because all those shows are taped here.
Yeah.
And you just have people who can very easily show up for cattle calls for these TV shows. And that was the fact with these two contestants. Two of them were from California, the LA area, and he was from Ohio. So you like that.
Unless it's Family Feud. Then all your families are from Atlanta.
Okay. I'll have to trust you on that.
Just random. Yeah, no, they film in Atlanta, of all places. But yeah, I actually kind of got my concentration broken there.
Well, we were talking about the producer. I had asked you about what would you do if you were the audience guy who got thrown under the bus and then goes on a quest to take down this contestant because of this contestant being on the show that I got thrown under the bus.
Well, if I'm getting thrown under the bus, I'm throwing the bus back under him because... In that case, it looks like, okay, I'm about to lose my job, and it's not my freaking fault. Like, I've got nothing to lose. I'm speaking up.
Well, and that's when he really starts messing with Michael by having the at-home contestants be the guy that has a restraining order against him.
Like, why would you screw with Michael Moore after they're trying to... At that point, I'd be like, I want this guy...
Not actual Michael Moore, the filmmaker.
Yeah. I want this guy to win $1 million because you're trying to throw me under the bus because of him. Screw you, dude.
Yeah, I mean, the audience guy didn't like Michael out of the gate, wasn't inclined to invite him onto the show, but the producer at the time went over his head despite his recommendation that he not be on the show. And then the producer basically throws him under the bus for putting him on the show. So
I felt like a lot of the motivations of the characters in the movie would not have matched what a motivation would be in real life. Like, even at the end, the producer's like, okay, we're going to turn this into something. You go until we tell you to stop. And at that point, Michael says, pass.
Yeah, the producer finally goes down and says, basically, we know what you're doing. So we've got a game plan for this. You're going to be the most popular game show guy ever. And you keep winning until we tell you you're done winning. And he goes back out and basically says, yeah, I pass. I'm done. And sticks it to the producer.
I mean, a couple of times it looked like Michael was going to leave the show because they rattled him and like in the middle of taping. like if I'm Michael Larson, I'm not leaving that show. Like,
well, and I'm sure there's a part of the character, not the real person, but the character, based on the storyline that they had fabricated, that he was scared. Like, oh crap, they found out what I'm doing. Am I getting in trouble? Am I not going to get the money? Should I just bolt and pretend I was never here? So, yeah, you definitely see that fear and anxiety in Michael's character.
See, it's hard for me because somebody who's in that position is clearly, regardless of what his profession was clearly extremely intelligent. And so he would have known he had nothing to fear. Like, he would have known what he was doing wasn't cheating.
I mean,
it wasn't encouraged, but it wasn't cheating.
It wasn't the typical definition of cheating in the fact that anybody could have done it, and like you said, he was exploiting a vulnerability.
Well, it's like
is it cheating or not?
No, it's not.
It's not typical cheating.
No, it's not. It's not cheating at all. And they actually made the perfect analogy in the movie. It's like counting cards in blackjack.
Which is cheating.
No, it's not cheating at all.
But they'll throw you out of a casino for that.
Yes, they will throw you out of the casino because they have the right to refuse service to anyone. And if they see you counting cards and taking their money, they're going to throw you out. It's not cheating. They can't do anything to you. They can't take your money because you were counting cards or anything, right? They can ban you from the casino, and that's the difference. One is a casino where there's no cameras, and the other one is they're shooting a television.
There's cameras all over the place.
Well, no public cameras. They're not shooting a show. Where the other one, they're shooting a show. You can't just be like, oh, you need to go now. You need to leave. Though I will say this. If I had been the producers in that situation, I don't know how long it would have taken to put a new pattern in on the fly, but I would have developed a new pattern like immediately.
That probably didn't have the technology back then to actually update the game board in real time during a taping.
I mean, you might have to do a pause for something. I mean, that's what I would have done. If I really didn't want him in there, it's clear he knows the patterns. So throw one or two patterns in there that he doesn't know. And then once he doesn't know them, he is just like every other contestant. Right. And the first time he sees a pattern that he doesn't recognize, he's going to crap his pants.
Yeah.
He's going to hope he gets safe, and he is passing those spins immediately.
That's a very good what would you do in the course of this film. Let's go ahead and bookmark this episode. You started off with talking about your own personal experience on, what's the show?
Price is Right.
Price is Right, and that you didn't win the car. What did you win instead?
I won Maps from the Past. Antique map reproductions. Maps from 1856. One was a map of the United States and one was a map of the world. It's actually kind of interesting. And I used to joke that if I ever have an office, these will look wonderful in an office, but I didn't have an office. And now I actually have an office and they look wonderful. Unfortunately, they're currently in the office I don't normally use. I need to get them back in this studio. But yeah, no, they hang on the wall and they look freaking great.
And they are constant reminders of that car?
You know what? No. I mean, it was the experience. I played 3 strikes, for those who know. And if you really know, you know it actually has one of the lowest win rates. I mean, you are playing for a premium car, but your win rate is like literally 8%.
Oh, wow.
At one point, I think they went 3 seasons without there being a winner.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I knew that. It was actually funny. So I will give a side note story on this one. So when you're called down, and this was 2003. I don't know if how their policies and procedures may have changed since, but you're sitting there in contestants row. If you look up, there is someone holding a cue card that says what the next game to be played is. If you're a contestant paying attention, you can see that cue card before you bid.
Oh, so you
you actually could know, hey, I really don't want to play this game, or I really do. So you could potentially just tank your, like if it's a game you just didn't want to play, you could just tank your bid.
Did you see that card?
I did.
And even though it had a low win rate, you still couldn't help yourself and tried to win?
I mean,
because you thought you could beat the odds. Because
okay, one, it's a premium car. It's not just a car; it's a premium car. It was a Cadillac. I mean, in 2003, a $46,573 Cadillac. So, yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to take a swing because I knew from the pricing point that I was smart enough to be able to do it. And I even had contestants, or I had the audience booing me at one point for something I did.
That's so on brand.
Well, yeah, it was like the numbers were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and when I drew out the 3, everyone's yelling 1, 1, 1. Put it in the 1 slot. I'm like, I know this Cadillac is not 30, it is more than 37,000, which would have been the max price. There's no way it's that. I pretty much knew the first number was the 4.
And they booed you for the wrong placement? That's not very encouraging.
Yes. So I said third number for 3 because I assumed that the 5 would be last. The 4 was first. I had already lit up the 6. Oh, that's the thing. I'd already lit up the 6. So I guess 36,700 would have been the max. So I knew it wasn't that. So yeah, I'm thinking the 5 is last, which ended up being incorrect, but you think end in 0 or end in 5.
Right.
So the 4 is first, the 5's last, and then I had the 3 and the 7. I didn't know if it was going to be the 3rd or the 4th, if it was 375 or 735. So I just took a swing, which, again, I was correct. I knew I was smart enough if I could get lucky enough to not pull that strike. But here's the thing, too. You can have all the luck in the world, like 4 of the numbers up, have 1 number left. But from that point forward, you still have to avoid a strike 50-50 3 times. Now, mind you, the odds say that you will avoid it once, but the odds also would have said that if there's 5 chips in the bag, 4 numbers, and 1 being a strike, that you're not going to pull the strike 3 times in a row. That's 1 in 125. But here I am beating the odds.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so that
gives
was
you a good story anyway.
Yeah, sorry. I love telling that story because it's a fun. I mean, and that's the thing about game shows. Win or lose, it is just a really cool experience that you will have with you for the rest of your life. So even like Jeannie, who was the contestant who wasn't the returning champion, and she was just another person
in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie. Sorry, like yes. It sucks to have run up against that, but I'm sure you still really enjoyed the experience. It's like really sucked if you had to run up against Ken Jennings in Jeopardy during his crazy run. Like, well, crap. Because you've heard like 30, 40, 50. You're like, oh, how the hell am I going to beat this guy? You're not, probably, but it's still an amazing experience. So even losing the car, it was still awesome. Plus, I got to spin the big wheel.
Nice.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.